Continue, maybe finish Psalms today, because obviously we're not doing very many of the 150. We discussed, I don't remember how many last Thursday, half a dozen or so. These are the ones I want to try to get to today. If we don't get them all done today, if my voice doesn't last, then we'll finish them on Thursday. I am going to have to make some changes to the syllabus. I'm not exactly sure how yet. Probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the prophetic books that we read. Pretty much the prophetic books I have down, except for Daniel, Isaiah and Ezekiel are two of the longest books. And as much as I really would like for us to discuss them, I'm probably going to replace at least those two, maybe all three of them, with 3 or 4 of the shorter prophets. Okay, haven't decided yet. Probably Joel, probably Habakkuk, probably Zechariah, and I don't know what else. But like I said, I haven't fully decided yet, because today we're supposed to be, today's the 8th, today we're supposed to be discussing Proverbs. Obviously not going to happen. Maybe Thursday, more than likely a week from Thursday, because remember, we don't have, today is Tuesday, correct? Because we don't have class a week from today because it's fall break. So let's try to work through these. And I've tried to just choose one or more from each of the major groupings of the Psalms, or major classifications of the Psalms. A wisdom psalm, I'm pretty sure we discussed 1 or 2 last week. A thanksgiving psalm, a Song of Zion psalm, a couple of laments, an enthronement. This one is sometimes considered an enthronement psalm. Your footnotes kind of say it could be either. These two are kind of companion psalms. That is, they work together. They need to be read in conjunction with each other. And if we were to have time, probably make sure I have that right. Nope. Probably Psalm 141 for another lament. So let's just try to put these in numerical order. Let's start with number 34, a wisdom psalm. Okay. Now your gloss tells you it's a I've got it down as a wisdom psalm. Your gloss tells you that it is a thanksgiving for deliverance from trouble. So what's the difference between thanksgiving and wisdom? Well, the wisdom psalms, as we discussed the other day, the wisdom psalms have those kind of proverbial statements, those distilled ideas based upon experience that most people would essentially universally acknowledge as being a mark of wisdom or of understanding that comes from experience and or age. So, we get the superscription here, Psalm of David when he feigned madness before Abimelech so that he drove him out and he went away. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul makes its boast in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and be glad. O magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. Now that doesn't begin as one of the normal wisdom psalms do. If you remember, the other wisdom psalms that I had written down the other day were 37, 73, and 90. Okay? That kind of sounds more like a thanksgiving at the beginning. I sought the Lord, he answered me, delivered me from all my fears. Look to him and be radiant, so your faces shall never be ashamed. Now, that's where it starts to move more into this idea of wisdom. Why look to him and be radiant? What does it mean to be radiant? Glowing. I mean, we often hear this phrase, when usually first month or so of pregnancy, a woman is described as she's glowing. Additional life, however you want to think of that. Look to him and be radiant. Why? Well, one of the greatest blessings that's in the Old Testament, and I don't remember if it's in one of these Psalms or not, it is in the book of Psalms, is, may the Lord make his face to shine upon you. That's the be radiant. It's not look to him because your radiance is naturally within you. It's look to him, why? So that you will have or receive that radiance, so that your faces shall never be ashamed. You've got a little gloss there, their faces, etc. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him, saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encamps around those who fear him and delivers them. That's wisdom. That's teaching. Okay? Taste and see that the Lord is good. How? How do you taste and see that the Lord, how do you taste the Lord? Well, the New Testament's going to take that and interpret it in the light, or in the early church fathers, and interpret it in the light of the New Testament. Christ says what? You have to eat of my body, drink of my blood, etc. Happy is the man who takes refuge in him. Fear the Lord, you his saints, for those who fear him have no want. Have no want means have no lack. If you fear the Lord, you won't lack for anything. Now, does he mean materially? No. Look at Job. He feared the Lord, and what happened to him? He lost it all. Of course, he continued fearing, and he got it all back. Okay? The young lions suffer want and hunger, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. Come, O sons, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord, we were told in Psalm 9 or 10, I can't remember. And then we're going to be told it later on in Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is what? Anybody know? The beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning of wisdom. Why? Fear of the Lord implies what? What is one of its presuppositions, to use that phrase that we talked about first or second day of class? That God exists, first of all. So you presuppose that. If you believe that God exists, why is the fear of the Lord the beginning of wisdom? Kind of go back to some of what Job says and to some of what the Psalms say in terms of, the hymns, in terms of praising God for his creative power and such. Well, God's responsible for what? Everything that exists. Okay? And God allows everything that happens. So the fear of the Lord being the beginning of wisdom, it's like the first stepping stone. You can rest somewhat on that. Okay? But it's not the only stepping stone. Come, O sons, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. What man is there who desires life and covets many days that he may enjoy good? Notice, that's kind of a rhetorical question. Because most people want life, long life, and want to have a good life, a happy life. So, the person that does this, notice what comes next. Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from speaking deceit. If you want days, if you want a long life and you want a good life, then don't speak evil in speaking deceit. What does it mean to speak deceit? Lie? Is it only lying? Is deceit only lying? Can deceit be also giving off false impressions? Can deceit be misleading someone? Yeah, it can. If you deceive someone, it doesn't automatically necessarily mean lie. It means you can give them a false impression. Okay? The eyes of the Lord are toward the righteous, his ears toward their cry. The face of the Lord is against evildoers, to cut off the remembrance of them from the earth. Okay? We always think against means one thing. Opposite to. Okay? This says the face of the Lord is against evildoers. Like I'm pushing against this wall. It means what? I have to be facing it. Does this mean face of the Lord, evildoers like this? I don't think so. I think it's the other way. It's against, it's facing opposite. Okay? The evildoers. Thus, it's not a blessing. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears, delivers them out of all their troubles. What happens to Job? He cries and cries and cries for essentially about 30 chapters, right? I mean, you get the intervening, words of the so-called friends, and God finally shows up. Doesn't necessarily tell Job what Job wants to hear, but, you get the idea. The Lord hears, delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Okay. Now, David's saying, it is David, right? Yes, it is David. David, by the way, we said the other day, 73 Psalms are attributed to David. The first 41 are all David's, okay? Or at least attributed to him. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Keep that in mind when we get to number 51, okay? Many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers him out of them all. That is, the Lord delivers him, the righteous, out of all the afflictions. He keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. The New Testament takes that to be a messianic prophecy. That's about the Christ, the anointed one, so that when Christ dies hanging on the cross, what do the Roman soldiers not do? That they typically do in crucifixions. They don't break his legs. Right? The reason to break somebody's legs who's being crucified, especially on a Friday evening or Friday afternoon, the Sabbath, is because the person's hanging there, shoulders are dislocated, the person can't get a good deep breath. You break the bones because the shock kills the individual. Okay? So, he keeps all his bones, not one of them is broken. Evil shall slay the wicked. Those who hate the righteous will be condemned. Okay? The Lord redeems the life of his servants. None of those who take refuge in him will be condemned. Okay? So, what's the wisdom, the teaching of wisdom that essentially this psalm is telling us? The righteous will what? Have a wonderful, perfect, happy life? No. They will be delivered out of their afflictions. Doesn't mean everything's going to go swimmingly for the righteous. It does say the righteous will overcome whatever their difficulties are. Okay? Go from there to number 40. I don't know why, but number 40 is sticking in my mind for some reason. 38. I don't have 38 down there. Why do I have... I've got 38 down somewhere else for something. I'm drawing a blank. Okay, 40. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. Notice the adverb. How did the speaker wait? Patiently. What's that tell us? How long does patiently imply? Long time or a few minutes? Long time. Patiently means to bear the time, to endure. Okay? It's not a few seconds, it's not a few hours. It's probably not a few days. It's probably much longer. I waited patiently for the Lord. He inclined to me and heard my cry. Incline. What does that mean? What do you do? What does something do when it inclines? It goes up. Or, look what my hand is doing. This is straight, right? This is an incline. That is, it's leaning towards. Notice he doesn't say, I waited patiently for the Lord. He declined to me. Because D would mean away. The in means towards. And he did what? God leaned towards me. Well, I'm assuming you do. Maybe you don't. If you lean towards someone, that usually implies a couple of things possibly. What's one of them? You're in a conversation and you do this. What does that mean? You're trying to hear better, right? You can't hear it quite. Okay? That's one meaning. What's another one? You want to get closer to that person. Okay? So you have both those implied there. He drew me up from the desolate pit. Drew. Okay? That word, drew, past tense of draw. Okay? The word draw there is actually, historically, etymologically, related to our modern word for tractor. You know, thing that pulls stuff through the fields and such. Or, you know, science fiction, a tractor beam. What does that do? It pulls. Both those words mean to pull towards. Okay? So he pulls me up out of the pit. And remember what I said, either last Thursday or last Tuesday. Can't remember which. Whenever you see the word pit throughout the entire Bible, it's always negative. It almost always references death and or Hades or Sheol. Okay? He drew me up from the desolate pit out of the miry bog and set my feet upon a rock, making my steps secure. So, from the pit, from the bog, bogs are slippery, bogs you can fall into and die in, and does what? Puts me on a rock. Okay? The Lord is my rock, the psalmist says. My place of refuge in time of help. Okay? Christ calls Peter his rock, etc. So, he put a new song in my mouth. Yeah, it's Thanksgiving. He put a new song in my mouth, a song of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and put their trust in the Lord. Verse 4. We're not going to read the entire psalm, just a few verses from it. Blessed is the man who makes the Lord his trust, who does not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods. Notice, the person who turns to the Lord will be blessed, rather than the person who does what? Louder. Turns away to where? To the false gods, but it's not directly to the false gods. It's to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods. So, who are the proud?
People who don't think they need the Lord.
People who don't think they need God, okay? People who think they're self-sufficient. Who can this include? Political leaders, kings, princes, Does it literally, when it says, to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods, very surface, top, literal level, yeah, probably means literal false gods. The Baals, the Ashtaroths, those kind of beings. What else can be a false god?
Anything you put before God.
Bingo. Anything that becomes your sole focus. Not even necessarily anything you put before God. Anything that becomes your sole focus. Anything that becomes, your driving mechanism in your life. A job, a car, money, wealth, sex, drugs, rock, whatever. Okay? Who does not turn to the proud, to those who go astray after false gods. Skip down to verse 6. Sacrifice and offering thou dost not desire, but thou hast given me an open ear. But if God doesn't desire sacrifice and offering, then why, go back to the Pentateuch, why does he command all of these sacrifices? All of these offerings to be performed regularly. Okay? But thou hast given me an open ear. Your gloss says, ears thou hast dug for me, but thou hast given me ears thou hast dug for me. What? He means ear, this kind of ear. He doesn't mean like ears of corn, ears of grain. Burnt offering and sin offering thou hast not required. Then I said, lo, I come in the roll of the book. It is written of me. I delight to do thy will, O my God. Thy law is within my heart. Who's the I? Notice, then I said, quote, is the I David? Because the New Testament says it's not. And the interpreters of the church say it's not. This is a foreshadowing of the coming of the Messiah. It's the Messiah who says, lo, I come in the roll of the book. It is written of me. I delight to do thy will, O my God. Thy law is within my heart. I have told the glad news of deliverance. And let's skip that. Go to verse 11. Do not thou, O Lord, withhold thy mercy from me. Let thy steadfast love and thy faithfulness ever preserve me. Well, that's not quite thanksgiving, right? That's supplication. That's a prayer. For evils have encompassed me without number. We're going to see another one where he's going to say, they have surrounded me altogether. My iniquities have overtaken me till I cannot see. My iniquities. Iniquity is just a long word that means what? Sins. It's not my mistakes. A mistake isn't a sin. A sin is that English word based on the Greek hamartia, and it means to take aim and miss the target. Okay, so how do you take aim morally and miss the target? You try to do right and you miss, but it's not a mistake. The idea is it's intentional. It's an intentional misfire, so to speak. Okay? So, my iniquities have overtaken me till I cannot see. There's a movie. Which one is it? It's one of the stupid Marvel movies. Where one of the characters, I can't remember which one, it's a Spider-Man. One of the characters is overcome by darkness. Anybody remember what I'm thinking of? And the bad stuff, I don't remember, comes from outer space or something, takes over the one guy, and we literally see him kind of get blacked out to where he doesn't see correctly. Okay? My iniquities, his sins, do that. till I cannot see. That is, and because of this sin, I can't what? I don't see properly. They are more than the hairs of my head. What's the they? Not the evils that have encompassed me. It's my sins. More than the hairs of my head, my heart fails me. So, he prays to God again, deliver me, etc., etc. Go down to verse 16. But may all who seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. There's thanksgiving again. So what's the poet, the psalmist really doing? He praises God, and then he prays to God. He praises God, and then he prays to God. Notice, prayer and praise are really two sides of a coin. They're really kind of the same thing. May all who seek thee rejoice and be glad in thee. May those who love thy salvation say continually, great is the Lord. As for me, I am poor and needy, but the Lord takes thought for me. I am poor and needy. Now, it doesn't mean needy, complaining, whiny, grumpy kind of needy. What's it mean? I don't have anything. I lack everything. Poor there means probably both material poverty, spiritual poverty. I'm internally dead. But what? The Lord takes thought for me. The Lord, what does it mean to take? We don't use that kind of language anymore. You don't say, well, I took thought of my friend. What do we say? I remembered. I remembered. The Lord remembered me, or remembers, present tense. The speaker is saying, I'm poor and needy, but God does what? He remembers me. Does he say, and therefore I'm now rich and have everything? No. But what he implies is, but I go on. Thou art my help and my deliverer. Do not tarry, O my God. Thou art my help and my deliverer. That's thanksgiving. And the very next line, the very next half of the verse is, do not tarry. What's tarry mean? Wait. How long? Tarry means to wait a while. I'm poor and needy, but you think of me. You're my help and deliverer. Don't wait too long, God. Why? How is human patience different from divine patience? What do we say everyone has? A limit, right? You can test me so far and then I snap. Okay? He's saying, don't wait too long, God. Why? Shut up, Siri. Because I'll die. Go to 46. I might come back to 38. For some reason, 38 really is sticking in my mind. 46. Okay? This is a song of Zion. What are those songs of Zion about? Don't just say Zion. They celebrate Jerusalem. They celebrate Jerusalem as the city of God and kind of the manifestation of the future kingdom of God. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Okay, your gloss for the letter L, very present or well proved. Well, very present and well proved are totally different meanings. Look at those two lines again. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Very present means what? Right here, right now. A well-proved help in trouble means what? In the past, every time we've needed refuge and strength, God has showed up. Well-proved, well-tested. Think how radically different those are. Because just because it always happened in the past, does that mean it will be the same today? No, it doesn't. Okay. Now bear in mind, the songs of Zion, they celebrate Jerusalem, but they also do what? They talk about God's creative power, and they talk about God's role in protecting, in redeeming Israel also. That is, they celebrate God's action in Israel's history. Well, that's the well-proved part. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with its tumult. What does all of that language about the earth changing through the tumult, what's that imply? What's that talking about? How many of you, that's not a good question. I'm assuming most of you, and I could be wrong here, are born and raised Tennesseans. Okay? If you're not, that's fine. I was born and raised in California. 20 miles away from the San Andreas Fault. Okay? We had earthquakes growing up. I think the largest one I ever experienced was about a 6.5, 6.6. If one of those were going right now, this thing would be doing it. I mean, it would knock over. These lights would all really be swaying. Some of you would probably start to feel like you need to throw up. Because take that back. This building would collapse. It's not built for it. And there's a sinkhole underneath it. So, the point is, the ground's not stable, not sure. Okay? He's saying, the speaker is saying, even though the world were to turn upside down, what? I wouldn't fear, or we won't fear. Why? Because God's apostrophe S, is there. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, that is the city, the holy habitation, not in the river. She shall not be moved. God will help her right early. The nations rage, the kingdoms totter. The nations rage, that is, the nations are raging against the kingdom. The kingdom is being kind of described like an island. And the nations are what? The nations are the storms breaking their walls against the island. And what happens to them? The kingdoms totter. The kingdoms can't overthrow the city of God. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. The Lord of hosts, what's the of hosts mean? Of hosts is of armies. What armies? The angelic armies. Okay? Come, behold the works of the Lord, how he has wrought desolations in the earth. He makes war cease to the end of the earth, that is, he stops all wars. He breaks the bow, shatters the spear. He burns the chariots with fire. All implements of war are destroyed. Be still and know that That comes right after he destroys all these implements of war. Be still and know that I am God. Be still. What's the still there mean? Because still usually in English implies always, continuously. So be always and know that I am God. Be continuously and know that I am God. Not necessarily. What does still mean in this context?
Not moving.
Not moving. Be at peace. That is, when? When the storms are raging. When the earth is shaking under your feet. Not literally. How does the earth shake under our feet here in Middle Tennessee? What happens when you have a really bad day? That's the earth shaking under your feet. What happens when you get in your car? Every one of our cars, we got, I don't know, 7 cars because there's 7 different people in our family. Every one of our cars is at least, I think, 12 years old. I don't know half the time when I get in my Tahoe if that sucker's going to start. I pray that it does. Usually it does. But lots of times it doesn't. Well, that's an example of the earth moving under my feet when it doesn't. Why? Because I expect it to be there. The earth to be stable. Be still. Know that I am God. Be still means in those times, take a deep breath. Calm down. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our... Why God of Jacob? Why not Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Who's Jacob the father of? The 12 tribes. The 12 tribes. Who's Jacob? What's his other name? Israel. The one God gives him. Israel. Okay? Go to 51. So, 51, we get this long little superscription to the choir master, a psalm of David when Nathan the prophet came to him after he had gone into Bathsheba. Now, most of the ones, rephrase that, all of the ones that say to the choir master probably mean, here's a song. I want you to arrange this for the choir. Set this to music. Okay? John Donne, 17th century English poet and preacher, had what he thought was an illness that was going to kill him in 1623. Okay? And he was pretty sick. There's a thing like plague going around in London. A lot of people were dying. And he wrote a poem called a hymn to God the Father, that he wrote and told the choir director at St. Paul's Cathedral at the time, set this to music. And he had it written, because he did live for another 8 years, he had the choir master set that to music so that was regularly performed in the cathedral. Why? It kind of served as a reminder to him. So, David writes this and gives it to the choir master. Notice, Psalm of David when Nathan the prophet came to him after he'd gone into Bathsheba. What's that story again? David comes out of his room one day. He looks out over the city of David, and he sees what? There's a woman bathing on her rooftop. She's pretty good looking. He calls for her. She's brought to him. He sleeps with her. She gets pregnant. And what does he do to her husband? Uriah the Hittite. Before he has Uriah killed, he has Uriah brought back from the front lines, gives him a little bit R. Why? Because he's thinking he'll go back home, sleep with his wife, and David could go, not my child. But Uriah, being a loyal general, does what? He sleeps at the door to David's house as if waiting for an order. And David's like, dude, what do you think? No, go back home. He goes, I can't do that. So he sends him back and he gives an order to his commanding general, put Uriah in the forefront of the battle. Put him in the hottest part of the battle so that he's killed. And when he's there, pull the rest of your troops back. And he does. So Uriah is killed. Word is sent to David. Uriah is killed. Bathsheba mourns his death. And then David brings her to his house and marries her. Just becomes one of his many wives. And then Nathan the prophet comes to him and goes, oh, God's mad at you. Oh, you screwed up big time. Have mercy on me, O God. Have mercy on me. Sorry, in the Orthodox Church, we say that part twice. Have mercy on me, O God, according to thy steadfast love, according to thy abundant mercy, blot out my transgressions. Notice, what is David appealing to? Two aspects of God. Your steadfast love and your what? Your abundant mercy. You've got so much mercy, God. You can afford to, expend a little bit on me. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from mine iniquity. I've got King James in my mind. King James, whenever you have something like that, iniquity, this, when you have a pronoun that's followed by a vowel, you throw on that. Mine, thy, thine. That's the only difference between my and mine and thy and thine. Okay? So, wash me thoroughly from my iniquity and cleanse me from my sin. So he's telling God, you've got to do this. I know my transgression, and my sin is ever before me. Go back to, was it 46? Go back to number 40, I think. My iniquities, verse 12. My iniquities have overtaken me till I cannot see. Well, what does David say here? I know my transgression and my sin is ever before me. It's ever before him. Why? It's like it overcomes his sight. All I see when I open my eyes is what? I screwed up. Okay. Now, what can happen to somebody who sees this way? What happens is all you see about yourself is the wrong you've done. What could that lead to? Because it does lead to this for a lot of people. Suicide. You don't think there's any way to get out of the hole, the pit that you've dug. I know my transgression, my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned and done that which is evil in thy sight. I don't know, if I were sitting down with David, I'd probably quibble with that part a little bit. I might say, well, there is, Uriah in Bathsheba, so that thou art justified in thy sentence and blameless in thy judgment. Notice, what's he doing here? God is justified. God is blameless. Why? Because of my sins. That is, I can't ascribe what I've done to you. You didn't make me do this. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. Now, should I go there? I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. What's David saying there? That passage, by the way, St. Augustine, author of the City of God, 5th century North African bishop, later saint. St. Augustine uses that to kind of justify his concept of what is now called original sin. Okay? Original sin, according to St. Augustine, is that sinful nature that Adam and Eve take upon themselves by disobeying God, that then gets passed on to all people. How does it get passed on? If I can spell it right. Concupiscence. May not be SC, might just be CE and CE. Okay? Well, what's concupiscence? It's essentially lustful sex. Okay? So Augustine essentially said, sin gets passed on through sex. It's genetic, in other words. Okay? Not everybody agreed with that. That is, not all of the church accepted that idea. The Western church, what became the Protestant and Catholic churches, bought it hook, line, and sinker. The Eastern church, what became the Orthodox churches, never acknowledged this term. They used the term ancestral sin. That is, the sin of the first ancestors, Adam and Eve. They don't believe it's passed on genetically. They say what Adam and Eve did is they brought sin into the world. That is, they brought sin, the choice for evil. They made that kind of natural to all of us, a predisposition. But even then, they don't talk about sin in a legalistic sense the way Augustine did. Augustine, sin was you have a righteous judge and Satan is bringing the charge against you. The Oriental churches, the Orthodox and other churches of the East, say sin is a disease. It's an illness to be cured. Okay? Well, who's called the great physician? Christ. So, I was brought forth in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. That's kind of saying what? I couldn't help myself. It wasn't me that did it. It was sin in me that did it. Okay? That's kind of passing the buck. Yeah, it was me, but, I'm a man. She's a beautiful woman. What do you expect? Okay? Behold, thou desirest truth in the inward being. You, God, desire truth in the innermost heart of a person. Therefore, teach me wisdom in my secret heart. I think what he's saying there, I could be wrong, but I think verse 6 is kind of looking at verse 5 and saying, yeah, no, I'm trying to dodge it. Therefore, God, you have to do what? You've got to open up my secret part and show me the truth. Because I know I'm trying to pass the buck here. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow. That is, you're the only one who can cleanse me. I can't cleanse myself. Fill me with joy and gladness, or make me hear joy and gladness. Let the bones which thou hast broken rejoice. Notice, he says, God has broken his bones. He doesn't mean literally, okay? If you have a broken bone, how many of you have broken a bone before? Really? Only one or two? Okay, three. You're timid about it. Maybe it's like a little finger bone, but not a shin bone or something. I was stupid one day, several years ago. I walked out of one of these doors, and I went to close it, and I didn't pull my finger all the way out from, like, right here, and just, like, it's either right there or right here. Just snapped it. Pain. Luckily, I had a dentist appointment that day, and the dentist was a pretty cool gal, and she x-rayed it for me, so I knew it was broken, and she splinted it right then and there. Dentists, of all people. That would never happen today because of... So, what's he mean? Thou hast broken, let the bones which thou hast broken rejoice. If you break a bone, where's the pain? It's deep inside. He's saying, the pain I feel, God, let those heal. Let those broken bones rejoice. Why? What does Job say about pain? What did, I'm going to quote Lewis again, C.S. Lewis say about pain? What's its purpose? Hello? Trying to get your attention. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and put a new and right spirit within me. Or renew a right spirit within me. Why create a clean heart? Jeremiah, whom we're not going to read, Jeremiah the prophet says the heart is wicked and dark. Wicked and beyond deceit. That is deceit amplified. Create in me a clean heart. Take the one I have and build a new one. And put a new and right spirit, what you gotta say, or steadfast spirit within me. Why? Well, what did God do after he made Adam? Breathe the spirit of life. David is saying, breathe that new spirit into me. Cast me not away from thy presence, and take not thy Holy Spirit from me. What's that mean, from thy presence? The face of God. Okay? Restore to me the joy of thy salvation, and uphold me with a willing spirit. Other translations say a guiding spirit or controlling spirit. So notice how it begins. Have mercy on me, oh God, have mercy on me. Why? Because I really screwed up. I really did a lot of bad things. I know my transgression. I know my sin. My sin is ever before me. What's David doing? He's acknowledging all this stuff. Okay? And then he does what? He then asks God to do certain things. Purge me with hyssop, clean me, fill me, create in me, take me not away, restore to me. And then we get, and this is what will happen after you do those things. Then will I teach transgressors thy ways. Notice, David doesn't say, when I'm still down in the mire and in the muck, I can teach transgressors thy ways. Why? It's a phrase we have to use today. You gotta walk the walk. Right? Why should you listen to somebody who doesn't do what they say you should do or one should do? So, do all this stuff for me, God. Then, he says, I will teach transgressors thy ways, and sinners will return to thee. But he's kind of saying, but right now, when I'm still covered in sin, I can't do those things. And sinners won't return to thee. Why? Because they'll look at me and say what? Hypocrite. And if we don't like anything, we don't like hypocrites more than anything at all, right? People who say one thing and do the exact opposite. O Lord, open thou my lips, and my mouth shall show forth thy praise. Again, he's telling God or asking God to do this. What's the implication? If God doesn't open his mouth, he can't. Okay? You've got to be the one to do this. And then my tongue will sing aloud of your deliverance. My mouth shall show you praise. For thou hast no delight in sacrifice, were I to give a burnt offering, thou would not be pleased. And again, we're told, God doesn't want a sacrifice. The sacrifice acceptable to God is what? A broken spirit. A broken spirit. One of the Beatitudes. Sermon on the Mount, Christ says what? Blessed are the poor in spirit. The poor in spirit means broken in spirit. Why? Your pride is gone. Your arrogance is gone. You're saying what? Help. Help. I can't do it. So, a broken spirit, a broken and contrite, O God, contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. Notice what the sacrifice is. It's within. It's not something out there. It's not a pair of partridges or turtle doves or a bull or a sheep or a lamb, all of which had to be spotless. It's here, and it's not spotless, right? It's dark, he says. So what constitutes an acceptable sacrifice? The heart is what? The center of one's being. The heart is the totality of what makes you, you. That's what God wants, according to David. In other words, all of you. He wants you entirely, not my mind, not, a little part. Do good to Zion in thy good pleasure. Rebuild the... What? He leaves from this very, very personal place to, it's kind of a celebration of Zion. Do good to Zion in thy good pleasure. Rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. Then wilt thou delight in right sacrifices, in burnt offerings and whole burnt offerings. Then bulls will be offered on thy altar. How does the speaker go from talking about himself, his personal sin, to Zion and right sacrifice? Where is Zion? I don't mean the geographical location. What's the purpose of Zion? It's where God will dwell, right? It'll be his habitation. He's using it here kind of as a metaphor. What's the heart going to be? God's dwelling place. His heaven. If you do these things to me, God, then what? Then will the walls of Jerusalem, my heart, be rebuilt. Then will I offer perfect sacrifice to you. Okay? That's 51. That's, what time is it? 9 o'clock. Yeah, let's do 88. We'll do it a little more quickly. Okay? This isn't a psalm of David. This is a psalm of the sons of Korah to the choir master, according to, we have no idea what these other words mean. According to Mahalath, Leanoth, literally, they don't have any idea what any of these words mean. They might be referring to a particular melody, might be referring to a particular kind of meter or rhyme. Okay? O Lord my God, I call for help by day. I cry out in the night before thee. Let my prayer come before thee. Incline thine ear to my cry. My soul is full of troubles. My life draws near to Sheol, that is, to death. I am reckoned among those who go down to the pit. Reckoned. I am counted. I am considered among those who go down to the pit. Well, we all go, metaphorically, we all go down to the pit, right? Everybody dies. Except for what? Enoch? Reckon among those who go down to the pit, I am a man who has no strength, like one forsaken among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, like those who, notice all the likes, like those whom thou dost remember no more. What's his point? Help me, God. Why? Because if you don't, then I am totally forgotten. Okay? Like one forsaken among the dead, one forgotten among the dead. How many of you have seen, what's the title of that stupid movie? Is it Coco? Disney film? Is it? Okay. I watched that, I don't remember what it was. One of my kids bought it or rented it a year or two ago. And it brought tears to my eyes for the simple reason that my mom died of Alzheimer's 3 years ago. Okay? Before she died, she had no idea who I was. Last time, take that back, not the last time I visited her before she died, the second to the last time before I visited her before she died, I was standing in the kitchen doing the dishes, and she came up to me and, thanked me for doing the dishes, and how long have we known you? And I said, pretty long time, kind of a thing. Well, you're really nice to help do the dishes. I said, it's no problem. Happy to be of service kind of thing. Okay. In the movie Coco, what's the general idea? What happens to the dead if they are forgotten? They disappear forever. They are annihilated. Okay? So the whole idea is to not be forgotten. For somebody on earth to remember you. Okay? And it's really interesting because in the Orthodox Church, the same kind of thing is described. We pray every Sunday, remember, O Lord, in thy kingdom. And then we recite a list of names, both the living and the dead. Because what's that word remember? If you look at it, literally, what does it mean? Reconstitute. Because what happens to somebody when they die? They dissipate, right? Reconstitute. Put back together. Okay? So, he says, I'm like one forsaken among the dead, like the slain that lie in the grave, like those whom thou dost remember no more. What did Job say will happen if God doesn't remember his creation? It disappears. That's part of God's active, ongoing creative agency. Okay? For they are cut off from thy hand. Thou hast put me in the depths of the pit, in the regions dark and deep. That is, I'm not just in the pit. I'm where in the pit? I'm in the deepest, darkest, most hidden part of the pit. Okay? Thou hast caused, thy wrath lies heavy upon me, and thou dost overwhelm me with all thy ways. So I'm not only down there, but God's wrath, his divine anger is on pushing the speaker down. Thou hast caused my companions to shun me, that is, my friends. Thou hast made me a thing of horror to them. What are friends who disappear in time of trouble? What kind of friends are those? We call them fair weather friends, right? They're friends with you when everything's going well. When you're buying dinner, what happens when you're broke? And you can't buy, well, you don't see those friends. That's what the speaker's saying. I am shut in so that I cannot escape. My eye grows dim through sorrow. How can your eye grow dim through sorrow? Literally, how can that happen? Because it does. If you spend a lot of time crying, weeping over something, what happens to your eyes? They swell because they get red. And because of that, they don't see as clearly. I am shut in so that I can't escape. My eye grows dim through sorrow. Every day I call upon thee. I spread out my hands to thee. Spread out my hands means the speaker's doing this, and what happens? Silence. Nothing. Kind of sounds like Job, right? Okay, God, where are you? Why is all this stuff happening to me? Dost thou work wonders for the dead? Do the shades rise up to praise thee? Is thy steadfast love declared in the grave, or thy faithfulness in Abaddon? Thy steadfast love. That means kind of everlasting mercy, enduring mercy. Are thy wonders known in the darkness, or thy saving help in the land of forgetfulness? The land of forgetfulness, that's the dead. Do the dead go, hail, praise Jesus? He's rhetorically saying, no. But I, O Lord, cry to thee. That is, I'm not like them yet. I'm not all the way dead. I will be soon if you don't help me. I, O Lord, cry to thee. In the morning my prayer comes before thee. Why dost thou cast me off? What's the speaker implying with that question? What have I done wrong? In the Old English poem Beowulf, Beowulf becomes a king. He rules for 50 years, at peace with everybody. Why? Because he's such a magnificent warrior. Nobody wants to try to touch him. After 50 years, a dragon comes. Dragon comes, torches his countryside, and torches his own house. And the poet tells us, and Beowulf immediately wonders what he had done to anger God. Unlike anybody else in the poem, nobody else ever thinks that question. Beowulf assumes he's done something wrong, and this is God's divine judgment on him. Why dost thou cast me off? Why dost thou, there it is, hide thy face from me? My God, the psalmist earlier said, what? Why hast thou forsaken me? Afflicted and close to death from my youth up, I suffer thy terrors, I am helpless. From my youth up. Now, you can take that from my youth up to mean from birth. Why? What happens the moment you take your first breath? Imagine this is, what are those things called? Bottle with sand in it. Hourglass, thank you. Imagine this is an hourglass with sand in it. The moment you take your first breath, the sand starts trickling, right? The clock starts counting down. We don't know how much sand is in our hourglass, okay? But the speaker is suggesting God does. Thy wrath has swept over me, thy dread assaults destroy me. They surround me like a flood all day long. We've heard this language before. They close in upon me together. Thou hast caused lover and friend to shun me. My companions are in darkness. Notice what this psalm, compared to some of the other laments, does not include. Where's the praise? Where's the hope? Where's the thanksgiving? Where's the speaker left? Help. Help. Like a person drowning in a pond, just crying out for help. Okay? 89. I will sing of thy steadfast love, O Lord, forever. Well, there's the answer to the cry. We're just going to skip 141 for now. Go to 93. Yeah, this is one of the enthronement ones. We don't need to do all of this one. The Lord reigns. He is robed in majesty. The Lord is robed. He is girded with strength. The world is established. It shall never be moved. Thy throne is established from of old. Thou art from everlasting. Thou art from everlasting means thou art from, notice, not the beginning. Everlasting means what? Always. Okay? Because beginning would imply there's something before. Go to 103, 104. Like I said, we don't need to do the rest of that one. 103, 104. Okay? These are hymns. What do the hymns do again? It's joyful. It involves a summons of some kind, whether it's an individual summons or the communal summons. Talks about God's creative action and talks about God's involvement in Israel's history. Notice 103 and 104 begin the same. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. 104, bless the Lord, O my soul. O Lord my God, thou art very great. So look at the first one. Bless the Lord, O my soul, forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your iniquity, who heals all your diseases. Who forgives all your iniquity. Who's the your? Who's being addressed? O my soul. Bless the Lord, O my soul. He's speaking to his soul. And he says, all of the soul's iniquity is wiped clean. Who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowned, well, we just talked at 88 about, I'm stuck down in the pit, help. Who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies you with good as long as you live, so that your youth is renewed like the eagles. And there's another passage that talks about what? with the eagle, not in here, in Isaiah, those who wait on the Lord will what? Will what? Mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. Okay? So, the Lord works vindication and justice for all who are oppressed. Those who are oppressed, the Lord does what? Vindicates. Okay, so does that only mean the oppressed? Does that only mean the poor? Because the poor are often oppressed. I don't think so. Because who else is oppressed? We're all oppressed by something or someone. He made known his ways to Moses, his acts there we get the history, right? And we get the action of God in history. Okay? Verse 10. He does not deal, take that back. Go back, verse 8. The Lord is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love. He will not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. Chide. What does it mean to chide? Stop that. That's chiding. Discipline is chiding. He will not always chide, nor will he keep his anger forever. He does not deal with us according to our sins, nor requite us according to our iniquities. Why? Because if the us, notice the communal aspect now, if the us were given according to their sins or according to their iniquities, what would they get? The deepest, darkest pit. Okay? As the heavens are high above the earth, so great is his steadfast love toward those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far does he remove our transgressions from us. Who's doing the removing of transgressions, according to the speaker? God. Why not north from the south? Why east from the west? Because there's no point in east and west where you reach true west or true east. What happens if you go east far enough? You come back from the west. North and south, there's true north and there's true south. Yes, you can go across that, okay? But at some point you reach north. East and west, you never reach. The east, you just keep going. What's the speaker saying? God will remove the sin, the darkness, the blackness, etc., as far as the east is from the west. Notice, it's not the individuals doing it. As a father pities his children, so the Lord pities those who fear him. He knows our frame. He remembers that we are dust. He remembers. He says, I know you're a bunch of wet mud. Therefore, okay, as for man, his days are like grass. He flourishes like a flower of the field, for the wind passes over it, poof, and it's gone. Its place knows it no more. But the steadfast love of the Lord is from everlasting to everlasting. To who? Notice, it's not to everyone. To those who fear him. Okay? 104. Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God, thou art very great, thou art clothed with honor and majesty. Wait, that sounds like an enthronement. Clothed with honor and majesty, who covers thyself with light as with a garment, who has stretched out the heavens. It also sounds like a hymn. He's talking about God's creative power. Right? Makest the clouds thy chariot, etc., etc. Thou didst set the earth on its foundations, his creative power again, etc. You covered it with the deep as with a garment. And we're talking about the early portions, very early portions of Genesis. The waters stood above the mountains. That thou rebuked, they fled. He separated the waters above from the waters below. Okay? And then what happens? Thou dost cause the grass to grow for the cattle. We're now on to the fourth day of creation, Wine to gladden the heart of man. We get to the animals. We see birds. We see badgers. We see lions and such. Verse 24. O Lord, how manifold are thy works. In wisdom hast thou made them all the earth is full of thy creatures. Talks about Leviathan. Verse 31. May the glory of the Lord endure forever. May the Lord rejoice in his works. Who looks on the earth? That is, God looks on the earth. It trembles. He touches the mountains. They smoke. And so what does the psalmist do? Ends that hymn with praise, with beatitude. I will sing to the Lord as long as I still live. I will sing praise to my God while I have my being, etc. Okay, 110 in about 7 minutes. And then we might come back to 141. 110. Now your gloss tells you that this is a royal psalm, probably composed for coronation. Some take this to be an enthronement psalm. Right? The Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies my footstool. Till I make your enemies your footstool. Your footnotes talk about this and its use in the New Testament. For example, Matthew 22:44. Matthew 22:44 is when some Pharisees come up to Jesus and they start asking him questions. He goes, let me ask you a question too. Who's David talking about when he says, the Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool? If he's talking about his son, how can he call his son my Lord? Jewish society, fathers don't address sons that way. So who's he talking about? And the Pharisees like, and Jesus says, neither will I answer your questions. If you can't even answer this, a basic messianic psalm, I'm not going to answer any of your questions. If you can't recognize, based upon Scripture, who the Messiah is, go away. So, the Lord says to my Lord. Notice, the Lord there, all small caps, the tetragrammaton, Yahweh, says to my Lord, sit at my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter, rule in the midst of your foes. Your people will offer themselves freely on the day you lead your host upon the holy mountains. That is, your people will join you. They will not be compelled. They will not be forced. From the womb of the morning like dew, your youth will come to you. What's that gloss say? The dew of your youth. From the womb of the morning, the dew of your youth will come to you. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, which St. Paul then picks up in the book of Hebrews. Right? The Lord is at your right hand. Why? Why is the Lord at God's right hand? The right hand always symbolizes power, symbolizes authority, symbolizes justice. Okay? Book of Acts, Stephen's being murdered. What does he say? I see the heavens open and there's the Lord sitting at the right hand of glory. Okay? The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations. Execute there just means perform. He will do. It doesn't mean he's going to start executing people. He's going to pronounce judgment, filling them among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. Well, what chiefs? These are the rulers of nations. Who what? Who set themselves up as gods, or who, as we saw in the earlier psalm, follow false gods. He will drink from the brook by the way. What brook by the way? What is this talking about? Think Psalm 23. Okay? Therefore, he will lift up his head. Now, in fact, very briefly, not go back, go forward. No, not Proverbs. Psalm 141. We won't read all of it. Psalm of David. Okay, remember, the first 41 are David, a total of 73. So the others are kind of interspersed throughout. I call upon thee, O Lord, make haste to hear me, give ear to my voice. When I call to thee, let my prayer be counted as incense before thee, and the lifting up of my hands as an evening sacrifice. So he's saying, let my prayer, hands lifted up, be like an evening sacrifice to you. And then what does he say? Set a guard over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lips. Well, if you know the book of James in the New Testament, what does James say? The tongue is what? Deceitfully wicked. Just like Jeremiah says the heart is. And so therefore you should zip it. Incline not my heart to any evil. Notice, God, he says, don't tend my heart to any evil. Don't force me to do evil. What does Christ teach the disciples to pray when he teaches them how to pray? What's one of the clauses? Lead me not into temptation. Or lead us not into temptation. Okay? Let a good man strike or rebuke me in kindness. In kindness. Let a good man out of kindness do what? What's strike or rebuke mean? Correct me. Okay? But let the oil of the wicked never anoint my head. That is, let not my doings be blessed by the wicked and such. Okay? We'll stop there. Okay, so we finished the Psalms. Now, whenever it's going to be, when we have the exam, you'll be able to, if you respond to a topic dealing with the Psalms, you'll be able to respond via any of the Psalms that you want. For Thursday, just read all the Proverbs. 32 chapters. They're much shorter than the Psalms chapters are. Probably shouldn't have a problem for that. I might have your papers back Thursday. It'll probably be a week from Thursday. Oh yeah, exam 2 is going to be moved back.